Okay, on this problem, if it was a regular equation, 2x equals 14, we'd divide both sides by 2. So that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to divide by 2, divide by 2. So 2x divided by 2 is just 1x, is greater than or equal to 14 divided by 2 is 7. Now we need to go ahead and graph our inequality. So we need a number line. And I'll put 7 in the middle. Our numbers get bigger as you go to the right and smaller as you go to the left on every number line. Now it says greater than or equal to 7. So we've got to use a closed circle at 7 on our graph. And all real numbers greater than 7 are going to go to the right. So I want to shade this side of my line because that's the direction that all the numbers are that get bigger than 7. Now, to check this, we need to check the endpoint first to make sure we've got our point in the right location. So I'm going to take 2 times 7 is greater than or equal to 14 and see if it makes a true statement. 2 times 7 is 14, is greater than or equal to 14. So 14 is equal to 14, so I know my endpoint is right. Now I got to pick a number from somewhere within this shaded region. 10s are really easy to multiply by, and 10 is in my shaded region because it would be like up here. So I'm going to multiply 2 times 10 is greater than or equal to 14. 2 times 10 is 20. So you get 20 is greater than or equal to 14, and that is a true statement. So I know I've shaded the correct direction. All right, on this inequality for number 2, we have negative 5x plus 9 is less than 4. Negative 5x plus 9 can't be simplified any further. So I'm going to start by getting my negative 5x term by itself. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides of my inequality. That's going to leave you with negative 5x is less than negative 5. Now I want to make x have a coefficient of 1. In order for it to have a coefficient of 1, I've got to divide by a negative 5 because a negative divided by a negative will give you a positive. So whatever I do to one side of my inequality, I have to do to the other. Since I'm dividing by a negative, I need to flip my inequality sign around. Anytime you divide or multiply by a negative, you have to reverse your inequality. That's going to leave you with x is greater than 1. And then we're going to graph our solution on our number line. So I'll put 1 here, 2, and 3. The numbers have to go smaller as you go to the left. So I've got 0 and negative 1. It's greater than 1. It's not greater than or equal to, so we're going to use an open circle. And all real numbers greater than 1 are going to go to the right. So I want to shade this side of my number line. So this says that all real numbers that are greater than 1 are going to make this a true inequality. Now to check my solution, I want to pick any number greater than 1 that my area shaded on my graph. 3 is greater than 1, so I'm going to substitute 3 into my original inequality. So I have negative 5x times 3 plus 9 is less than 4. You don't have to pick 3. You can pick any number that's going to be in your shaded area. So you could have picked 5, 10, 20. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Plus 9 is less than 4. Make sure you're following order of operations. You got to simplify each side independently. Negative 15 plus 9 is negative 6 is less than 4. Negative 6 is less than 4. All negative numbers are less than positive numbers, so you know you've got it shaded correctly. Okay, so on number 3, we have 17x minus 2 is less than 8x plus 16. Both sides are completely simplified, so I'm okay to go ahead and start using inverse operations. So I'm going to start by subtracting 8x from both sides of my inequality. That's going to leave you 17x minus 8x is 9x. Bring down the minus 2. Bring down your inequality. 8x minus 8x is 0, which just leaves you with the 16 on this side of your inequality. Now I've gotten all my variables to the left-hand side of my inequality. So I can go ahead and get my variable term isolated by undoing my minus 2, and I'm going to add 2 to both sides. That's going to leave me with 9x. Negative 2 and positive 2 is 0, so I'm going to bring down my inequality. 16 plus 2 is 18. 9 times x, I want to undo multiplying, so I'm going to divide both sides by 9, because you always divide by the number that's being multiplied by your variable. That gives you the answer, x is less than 2. Now you need to go ahead and graph the solution on a number line. So I'm going to put 2 roughly there. 3, 4, 5, 1, and 0. Now it says x is less than 2. We read it as all real numbers less than 2. Less than means we're not including 2, so it's going to be an open circle at 2. Less than is to the left. All real numbers less than 2 are to the left of 2 on your number line. Now, since we did not use a closed circle at 2, we're not going to check the endpoint because we don't need to. We are going to pick a number from somewhere in the shaded region of our graph. If 0 is in your shaded region, that's a really good number to pick to check to make sure your graph is correct, because it's really easy to multiply and add 0. So I'm going to do 17 times 0 minus 2 is less than 8 times 0 plus 16. 17 times 0 is 0. So that only leaves you with a negative 2 on this side. 8 times 0 is 0, which leaves you with just a 16 on this side. Negative 2 is less than 16, so I know the shading on my graph is going the correct way. Okay, on number 4, we have 2 times the quantity x minus 3. We have parentheses in here. These parentheses we need to get rid of first. So the only way we can get rid of them is to distribute that 2 through your parentheses. That's going to leave you with 2x minus 6 is greater than or equal to 3x plus 12. Now I can go ahead and I can start using inverse operations because both sides of my inequality are simplified. I'm going to start by subtracting 3x from both sides. That's going to leave you with negative x, because 2 minus 3 is a negative 1. So negative x minus 6 is greater than or equal to 12. I've got all my x's on one side of my inequality. So now I'm going to get my x by itself, and I'm going to add 6 to both sides. That's going to leave me with negative x, make sure that negative goes along with its x, is greater than or equal to 18. Now we're not done because this isn't positive x, it's negative x. We have to divide both sides by a negative 1 in order to make that x positive, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Because I did that and I'm dividing by a negative, I have to flip my inequality around. So instead of being greater than or equal to 18, it's going to be less than or equal to. So I've got x is less than or equal to a negative 18. Now we've got to graph our inequality. So I'm going to draw my number line. Negative 18, negative 17, and negative 16 are going to go to the right. Negative 19 and negative 20 are going to go to your left. Now it says less than or equal to. So that means it's a closed circle because of that equal to. All real numbers less than negative 18 are going to go to your left. Think less than left. So I'm going to shade the left side of my line left to the circle. Now I'm going to check my endpoint. So I'm going to take negative 18 and substitute it into my original inequality. So I'm going to have 2 times negative 18 minus 3 is greater than or equal to 3 times negative 18 plus 12. Simplify each side. So you got to do negative 18 minus 3 first, which is negative 21, times 2. Over here, 3 times negative 18 is negative 54. 2 times negative 21 is negative 42. Is greater than or equal to negative 42. So this is the equal to part. Negative 42 is equal to negative 42, so we're good. Now I need to pick a number from my shaded area. I'm going to pick negative 20. It's in my shaded area, and it's going to be relatively easier to multiply by. So I'm going to have 2 times negative 20 minus 3 is greater than or equal to 3 times negative 20 plus 12. Negative 20 minus 3 is negative 23. Times 2 is greater than or equal to negative 60 plus 12. 2 times negative 23 is negative 46, is greater than or equal to negative 60 plus 12 is negative 48. Because these are different signs, you've got to subtract them. So 60 minus 12. So that's going to give you 48. Since 60 is negative, 48 has to be negative. Negative 46 is greater than or equal to negative 48, because the larger the negative number gets, the smaller it actually is. So we know this is correct.